Okay, so let's just get right to it because the news is pretty shocking. After just one season, a season where he was their top receiver, a guy who helped get them to the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots are cutting Stefon Diggs. Seriously, on the surface, this move makes absolutely zero sense. So you gotta ask, what's really going on here? So how does this even happen? How does a team just part ways with its most reliable, most productive players so quickly? Well, to really understand this stunning decision, you have to look at three different things. The business side of it, his incredible performance on the field, and a very, very serious off-field complication. All right, let's start with part one, the shocking cut. And, as it so often does in the NFL, this really comes down to one thing. You gotta follow the money. At its core, this wasn't really a football decision, it was a financial one. And here it is. This is the number at the heart of the whole thing, $26.5 million. That's the gigantic hit Diggs was scheduled to take against the salary cap next season. Now, just for perspective, compare that to the $10.5 million he cost last year. You can see why the front office started to feel like they were in a pretty tough spot. But what really forced their hand, what really set the clock ticking, was a deadline. See, if Stefon Diggs was still on the roster by the end of next week, another $6 million of his contract would have become fully guaranteed. So the team had to decide right now if he was worth that massive cap hit. And, well, they decided he wasn't. And that brings us to part two. And this is what makes that money decision so hard to wrap your head around. To really feel the shock of this move, you have to understand just how unbelievable Stefon Diggs was on the field for New England this past season. I mean, just look at the stats. The guy was the team's top receiver across the board. 85 catches, over 1,000 yards, and he wasn't just putting up empty numbers either. He was their go-to target in the biggest moments, a true leader on that Super Bowl run. He delivered on every single promise. Now check this out, because his performance wasn't just great, it was literally historic. Diggs caught an incredible 82.5% of the passes thrown his way. That is the second highest catch rate for any receiver with over 100 targets in the last decade. That kind of reliability, you don't see that. It's almost unheard of. And the connection, it went way beyond the field. After the news came out, Diggs posted this on his Instagram. "Thank you for a hell of a year. We family forever." In just one season, he clearly forged a deep bond with the team, with the city, and with the fans. By every on-field measure, it was just a perfect fit. So, we've got this tough financial choice on one side, and this absolute star performance on the other. But there's a third piece to this puzzle, and it's the elephant in the room. There's a serious off-field issue here that adds this crucial and honestly deeply troubling layer of complexity to the whole situation. Stefon Diggs is currently facing felony strangulation charges, along with other criminal charges. They all stem from an alleged dispute with his personal chef. And we have to be clear, this is a very, very serious legal matter that casts a huge shadow over everything else. Now, it's important to state the facts here. Diggs has pleaded not guilty to all charges, and the legal process is still playing out. He has a pretrial hearing coming up. But for the Patriots, the sheer uncertainty of this pending case was, without a doubt, another major factor in their decision. So, after all that, what comes next? The ripple effects from this move create these massive questions, not just for the Patriots, but for Stefon Diggs himself. For the Patriots, the question is immediate, and it is daunting. How in the world do you replace that kind of production for your young quarterback, Drake Maye? They now have this gigantic hole at their most important skill position. And, their own head coach, Mike Vrabel, summed up the challenge perfectly just last week. He said true number one receivers, they're not just waiting for you in free agency. You have to go out and draft them. And for a team picking 31st overall, man, that is a very tall order. And what about Diggs? His future is just as up in the air. Yeah, he's 32, but he's also coming off one of the most efficient seasons from a receiver that we have seen in years. So the big question for every other team is, how do you weigh that elite production against his age and, of course, the massive cloud of his legal situation? It all just leaves us with this one final lingering question. For the New England Patriots, they got a Super Bowl run, and it was fueled by a true star receiver. But now, looking back at the cost, the sudden ending, and all the complicated circumstances, you have to wonder, was one incredible season really worth the price they ultimately had to pay?